Kang Minho was a cold-blooded Korean billionaire who ruled his empire with an iron fist, feared by everyone who knew him. Then one evening, he walked into his private study and heard a strange gurgling sound coming from his inner sanctuary. And when he pushed open the door, he found a baby crawling across his pristine floor, beaming at him like she'd been expecting his arrival all along. In that instant, everything he believed about control and power shattered, because somehow this infant had appeared exactly when his world was crumbling around him. But was it really just chance? Before we continue, this is Life Tales Stories, where unexpected meetings transform destinies and silent moments hold the power to change everything. If you're intrigued by what happens when a merciless tycoon's carefully ordered life collides with a mysterious baby, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's dive in. Kang Minho shut the heavy door of his personal study with controlled force, his eyes fixed on the leather chair behind his mahogany desk as he strode toward it with purpose. His phone vibrated in his pocket. Oh. He already knew what awaited him without looking. Another update from his legal team. Another message confirming just how catastrophically the latest venture had imploded. The partnership with Dehen Industries had disintegrated 4 hours earlier. It was a slow, agonizing collapse that kept revealing fresh problems every time his advisors thought they'd contained the damage. Falsified reports, hidden agendas, and regulatory violations. Minho sank into his chair and let his eyes close. For the first time in a decade, he allowed himself to speak into the silence. ABOG. The word emerged harsher than he'd intended. His father had forged Kang Corporation from nothing but borrowed money and sheer determination. He'd weathered financial crises, aggressive competitors, and 3 betrayals by men he'd considered family. Minho had inherited the kingdom, but apparently not the survival instincts his father possessed. What would you do right now? He breathed into the empty room. The grounds of his estate hummed quietly beyond the windows, and then he heard it. Ka. His eyes snapped open. It was gentle, small, almost like imagination. Tuda. He remained motionless, straining to hear. Goo-ga. The sound wasn't coming from his study. It was coming from his private chamber. Minho's eyebrows drew together sharply. That space was restricted. Nobody accessed it without his explicit authorization, he reminded himself. He rose slowly. The babbling came again. Ah! A surge of irritation mixed with curiosity flooded through him, and he pushed the inner door open and stopped dead. In the middle of his expensive carpet sat a baby, plump legs spread out, miniature fingers experimentally pulling at the gray fibers, like she was testing whether the entire floor might unravel. The baby glanced up at him and grinned. Minho's mind went completely blank. What in the world? He caught himself mid-curse. Somehow, despite his shock, he remembered not to swear around children. The baby blinked at him, then gurgled again. Ah! Goo. Duya. His security was state-of-the-art. Sote, his inner chamber locked with biometric verification, but none of that explained the tiny person currently sitting in the epicenter of his private world. How did you gain entry? He asked quietly, moving closer. The baby's face broke into a cherubic smile, examining him with thoughtful eyes, as though genuinely considering his question. Then she patted the floor, reached down, grasped a stray thread, and yanked. Minho drew in a sharp breath. Wait, he started. Too late. The thread pulled free. The baby studied it with fascination. His gaze fell to a damaged spot. You just destroyed my carpet, he stated flatly. The baby looked up again and smiled even wider. Something shifted unexpectedly in his chest. Unwanted, unfamiliar. As he stepped nearer, a ridiculous notion entered his mind. None of the women from his past ever informed him of a pregnancy. Did one of them somehow break in, And leave a child for him? He wondered. The concept was absurd. Minho halted 3 feet from the baby, his eyes sharpening as he observed her. Probably female, Minho thought. The baby extended one hand toward him, presenting the thread. I don't
I don't want that, he said automatically. The baby shook the thread enthusiastically.
Minho's mouth twitched before he could suppress it. He lowered himself carefully, avoiding any sudden movements that might frighten her. Do you comprehend who I am? The baby leaned forward and planted both palms on the carpet. Gagu! So you're indifferent. Minho supplied the conversation. The baby picked up another thread. Wonderful. Minho laughed despite himself. You're remarkably bold, he said to her as he settled onto the floor in his tailored suit. First, you refuse to explain how you appeared here, and now you continue vandalizing my carpet. I could have you detained for trespassing on private property. Gaga, the baby responded. You're correct. The carpet needed replacing anyway, Minho agreed with a nod. For a solid minute, they simply regarded each other. You resemble someone, Minho murmured. The baby blinked with displeasure. Oh, you believe you're unique and don't look like anyone else? The baby cooed with indignation. Minho chuckled quietly. Ka, fine, but I cannot leave you here. Minho got to his feet, gesturing for the baby. Come along. Gagoo. The baby merely stared at him and raised her hand. Minho raised an eyebrow as he looked down. You entered independently, and now you're unable to exit. Ow! You enjoy commanding my attention, don't you? Oh! Oh! God. The baby pouted. You deny it? Incredible. Minho shook his head as he bent down and lifted the baby. I'm wounded by your rejection. The baby was surprisingly light. She settled against his chest like she'd always belonged there. This is madness, Minho muttered. He carried her back into his main study. Where would you prefer to sit? The baby pointed decisively at his chair. He stared at her and said, You possess refined taste. He placed her on the wide leather seat and observed as she bounced slightly, thoroughly pleased. Time passed. The baby explored his cushion, the pillows, the small stack of contracts nearby, and gradually, Minho completely forgot about Dehan Industries. The study door suddenly flew open. Oh, sir! A young black woman in staff uniform rushed inside. Her eyes went directly to the baby. Irene! She exhaled and hurried forward. I've been searching everywhere for you. The baby squealed. Gah! Gah-goo! The woman swept up the baby and held her tightly. I'm deeply sorry, sir, she said breathlessly as she turned toward him, her head already bowing. I set her down for one moment, and she just mastered crawling, and This is entirely my responsibility. Minho stared at the woman, his brows creasing as he noted her uniform. Clearly, she was one of the housekeeping staff assigned to his estate. The woman froze when she finally raised her eyes and recognized who he was. Color drained from her face. Dear God, she whispered. I apologize, Chairman Kang. I had no idea she was in here. I swear I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. The baby squirmed in her embrace. Gagu. He studied the woman's trembling fingers. What name did you give the baby? He asked. What? Naomi answered quickly. Her name is Iris. He murmured. She's female. Minho tilted his head and examined the baby. I suppose the round cheeks were rather obvious, weren't they? Naomi flushed, bewilderment crossing her features at his comment. I'll take her immediately. Ow! Thank you for locating her. She turned to exit. Iris suddenly wailed, her tiny hands reaching desperately toward Minho. The sound struck him like a physical blow. Minho's jaw set. Leave her, he said. Naomi stopped abruptly and looked at him. But... Additionally, I'll need to verify your identity. What? The woman breathed. You might be a kidnapper, Minho continued. Just observe how she's screaming in your grasp. It appears she's attempting to escape from you. The woman's eyes went wide with shock. I'm her mother! Then provide proof, Minho commanded. The woman gently returned Iris to the cushion. Fa. Her hands trembled as she retrieved her phone. She displayed photos, hospital identification bands, and scanned birth documentation. He reviewed them carefully. Naomi Ashford, he murmured, letting the woman's name rest on his tongue. It doesn't alter the reality that Iris wishes to remain. He handed the phone back to Naomi. Here's my proposal. I'll supervise Iris while you complete your work. Minho offered as he reached for Iris. Naomi stared at him in disbelief. But, sir, it's acceptable. She was providing me companionship, so you may go. Iris leaned contentedly against his chest. Then, abruptly, a smell reached his nostrils. Minho went rigid. What is that odor? He asked. Naomi laughed nervously. Diaper change time. He looked down at Iris. Then I should probably let you handle this. With that, Minho transferred Iris, who was still protesting, to Naomi. He watched silently as they both exited his study. As the weeks progressed, Kang Minho found himself actively seeking out baby Iris's company, and he also realized that lately, Iris seemed to anticipate his visits. What surprised Minho was when recently baby Iris had insisted in her peculiar way that he feed her in his home study. I control numerous properties, and yet you refuse to eat this meal from me, Minho remarked as he carefully lifted a tiny spoon toward the baby's mouth. In the high chair that he'd hastily ordered online through his assistant, baby Iris sat like a miniature monarch and slapped the tray. She twisted her head away, her lips pressed firmly together. Why are you being difficult? Minho asked. Was it your mother? Did she deny you recreation time? Gah! Goo. Oh, you dislike the food? Minho peered at the bland mixture. That was her meal. I comprehend. It appears revolting. Curious, he dipped a finger in it and sampled it. His expression twisted. Excessive milk content. Iris slapped the tray with approval. I'd offer you kimchi or crispy chicken, he told her earnestly. But you lack teeth. Ah, gah. Gah. Oh, you possess teeth, he said dryly. Well, not as many as I have. I'll need to inquire with your mother about your age. It appears you're selective with your meals. At that moment, his assistant knocked on his door. Sir? His assistant said gently, entering with a laptop. The board is prepared for the conference. Set it there. He placed the spoon down and stood. Iris immediately stretched her arms toward him. Pow. He hesitated for a moment, then picked her up instinctively. The board meeting commenced with 20 stern men on a screen. Silence descended when they noticed the baby. Sir, this is a confidential session? One of them said stiffly. She'll remain silent, Minho replied. Iris patted his collar. The meeting continued. Iris crawled onto his desk and positioned herself beside his laptop. She didn't utter a sound, not once. Strategy 2 is the most profitable, the CFO stated. Then I believe we'll proceed with strategy 2. Minho nodded. Gagu! Every head turned at the sound. Minho looked at Iris. Is there an issue with strategy 2? Nah, Gagu. His eyes narrowed. You prefer strategy 1? He asked. Iris clapped her hands forcefully twice. Minho rubbed his chin thoughtfully. The executives gaped and stammered. Sir, strategy 1 isn't a viable option. Resend me both contract proposals, Minho said quietly. But sir, I said resend them, he ordered, his voice carrying unmistakable finality. Then he terminated the meeting. Looking at Iris, Minho asked, Why did you select strategy 1? Iris gave him an angelic smile as her answer. Minho watched in amazement as the baby's eyes suddenly began drooping, her eyelids heavy with exhaustion. Oh, you're tired after a demanding day's labor, he commented as he lifted Iris into his arms and rose to his feet. At that moment, Naomi entered his study. Have you finished your tasks? He asked as she approached him. Yes, sir, she replied. I'll take her for nap time, Naomi said as she reached for her baby. Iris stirred at the sensation of her hands. Iris's fingers curled tightly around Kang Minho's shirt, refusing to release. Pa, she whispered, but it was perfectly clear. Naomi's heart pounded as she stared at her baby. Her face flushed red as she finally managed to pull Iris away from her employer. Swallowing hard, she tucked Iris into her arms and mumbled, I apologize, sir. Then she departed the study as quickly as possible. Minho watched the door close behind them. He remained too stunned to respond. The word that Iris had whispered kept echoing in his mind. Pa! Something shifted in his chest, but he couldn't identify what. By the way, we're thrilled to have you here with us. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We love connecting with our Life Tales stories, community from across the globe. It was remarkable. That was the realization that resonated through Minho's consciousness as he re-examined the documents presented to him. Ari, just a modest amount of thorough investigation, and the entire scheme had collapsed. Strategy 2, which involved utilizing a third-party consulting group to facilitate a major corporate transaction, was appearing increasingly suspicious as he continued reviewing the report. It was even more disturbing that there was a concealed link with the failed arrangement connected to the DN group, the information breaches, the misfiled paperwork that resulted in the government penalties. His suspicion grew that this was beyond mere coincidence. It was something darker. Conversely, Strategy 1 involved the company who had submitted the original business plan. Although they were inexperienced and lacked proven track records, the investigation revealed that they were principled and diligent. Perhaps it was time to pursue an alternative approach, he considered. Something felt wrong with the way Strategy 2 was being forced upon him. But first, he required more concrete evidence. The past 7 days, he had recognized that baby Iris wasn't merely intelligent, but also perceptive and remarkably astute. Minho found himself consulting the baby more and more. By the end of the week, the pattern of the information leaks were unmistakable. Corporate espionage, his executive vice president, his assistant of 4 years, and a junior finance analyst who shouldn't have possessed access. The third-party consulting group connected to Strategy 2 was directly linked to a documented money laundering operation in Macau. Strategy 2 wasn't just dangerous, it was illegal. His CFO stood before him, ashen. They were attempting to force Strategy 2, regardless of your decision. Minho looked at the documents before him. So if I had selected strategy too, you'd be authorizing your own prosecution, the CFO said hoarsely. The room felt suffocating. I. Benho closed his eyes. Baby Iris didn't just rescue him. She had preserved his father's legacy. Minho arrived at the storage facility where the traitors were currently detained. He walked casually toward them as they shook before him. Their faces were bruised and swollen. His mouth curved slightly. This corporation was founded on faithfulness, he said softly, and yet you attempted to auction it for nothing under my watch. Please, sir, the executive vice president pleaded. Minho felt the familiar impulse rise in his chest. The ruthless one, the one his father had instilled in him. Destroy the betrayers so nobody ever considers treachery again. He thought of Iris's tiny hand gripping his shirt. Ordinarily, he said gently, crouching to meet their eyes, I would annihilate you and your households. The traitors wept openly now, their bodies convulsing. But these past few weeks, I've had an angel beside me, and so I'll demonstrate compassion. After all, why should your relatives suffer for your greed? He added. Clapping his hands, he smiled. I've concluded. I won't eliminate you. I'll reveal your deception and ensure you're permanently banned from all corporations globally. He looked at his executive vice president. I'll be generous and notify your wife about your affair with my assistant. I'll also guarantee your wife prevails in the divorce proceedings and claims more than half of your holdings and wealth. The executive vice president's expression crumbled in defeat. This is mercy, Minho said calmly, standing upright. You have my Iris to thank for this. His lips curved into a smile. Count, handle this, he instructed his security as he turned and departed from the facility. In the back of his vehicle, Minho's thoughts drifted to baby Iris. He wouldn't be able to see her today because it was Sunday and Naomi didn't report for duty. Bah! Ever an idea emerged in his mind. Wow. He quickly obtained Naomi's address from his administrative team and instructed his driver to redirect. The car entered her neighborhood 17 minutes later. His jaw clenched as he surveyed the surroundings, deteriorating structures, damaged stairwells, overflowing in foul gutters, completely unsanitary. Minho stepped out of the vehicle and heard yelling. An irate man stood in the corridor, throwing boxes into the hallway. Naomi stood before him, trembling. Iris cried in her arms, You're 5 months delinquent on rent, the man shouted. I've been tolerant enough. Please, Naomi whispered. I just received payment. I can begin repaying. Someone else is occupying this unit today, Iris screamed. Minho rushed forward and positioned himself between them. What's happening here? The landlord sneered. Cool, and you are? Her employer. Minho looked at his driver. Pay him with the corporate card. The landlord blinked as the driver stepped forward and collected his account information. Pie! Sir, dispatch the additional team to collect her belongings, Minho said to the driver. Turning to Naomi, he continued, You're not remaining here, but you paid. Can't you observe? Can't you observe? He snapped. She can't develop here. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. I'm doing everything I can. This is what I can manage. Something stung in Minho's chest. He carefully took Iris from her embrace and headed for his vehicle. Iris calmed immediately in his arms. Get in, he commanded Naomi, his voice tight. Naomi silently complied, her eyes on her baby. Where is her father? Minho asked quietly after they had driven away and Iris had fallen asleep in his arms. He died before her birth. Financial debts. What about his relatives? I wasn't legally married to their son, so they claimed they had no obligation to me. Kang Minho's jaw clenched hard. That meant she had been isolated from the very start, carrying grief and having to deliver a child completely alone. "What about your family?" he asked. The, well, she began. "They weren't supportive of my relationship, so—" There was hesitation and sorrow in her voice. "I understand," Minho interrupted. He didn't need her to articulate the circumstances with words. He simply understood. "I'll assist you," he announced. "Sir—" "I'm doing this for Iris," he interrupted quickly. "You will accept it," he said, his tone absolute. Naomi nodded once and looked out the window, her throat constricted and her eyes brimming with unshed tears. The house was unnaturally quiet. Kang Minho stood in the living room of one of the guest annexes he hadn't utilized for the past 2 years since constructing his estate. After all, he never actually had visitors that extended their stay at his residence. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. Naomi stood uncomfortably near a sofa, clutching Iris's diaper bag like armor. "I apologize," she said softly. "She's probably overstimulated." Minho glanced at the baby. Iris was not overstimulated. Instead, she crawled energetically around the already child-proofed living room. Then she moved directly toward the glass wall and pressed her tiny palms against it. "Googa!" Minho's heart seized. "Careful," he said, and lifted her up reflexively. Hours later, the personnel arrived. They brought a crib, a playpen, a baby monitor, bags overflowing with clothing. Naomi stared at everything like it might vanish if she looked away. "This is excessive," she whispered from where she sat. "It's temporary," he lied. Iris crawled around the soft floor like she ruled it. She discovered a miniature toy keyboard on the ground. But she hammered down on one key, then another. Minho watched her contemplatively. "Do you enjoy it?" he asked, crouching beside her and observing. Iris offered him a cherubic smile and continued hammering the keyboard with excitement. He took them shopping 2 days later. Security cleared the entire baby boutique. Naomi looked mortified. "This is unnecessary." Minho ignored her. Instead, he crouched and positioned Iris on the immaculate floor of the boutique. Glancing around, he grabbed 2 toys and placed them several steps away from Iris. One toy was an elaborate dollhouse. The other was a miniature electric racing car. "Choose," he said. Iris stared at both for a moment before she crawled to the car. Minho smiled. "Oh, you appreciate speed." Then, to everyone's astonishment, Iris moved to the dollhouse and dragged both toys toward herself. Kang Minho burst into thunderous laughter. Naomi stared confused. "She claimed both toys," Minho remarked after he'd seen the puzzled expression on Naomi's face. Standing to his feet, he explained, "When people encounter $100 bill and a $10 bill on the ground, they're conditioned to select only one or neither. But if you're going to make a decision, why not claim both notes?" He looked at Iris, a smile on his face. "Iris is a prodigy. She is destined for extraordinary things." That evening, he stood on the balcony with Naomi while baby Iris crawled inside a soft fabric tent nearby. "She rescued me from a disastrous transaction, you know," Minho said quietly. Naomi shook her head. "She's just a baby." He turned to Naomi. "No, she's a messenger sent to me." Naomi looked down. "I don't believe she comprehends any of that, sir." Minho nodded. "That's why I've decided to sponsor her." Naomi's breath caught for her entire existence. "Education, lifestyle, anything she desires or requires." "But, sir, I don't care if she never performs her baby magic and rescues me in the future again. Your baby is a genius who must be protected. Besides, she can never disappoint me. He glanced at Iris. Does she have a Korean name? Naomi nodded. Yes, and oh, gentle and wise. Her name signifies graceful wisdom. Exactly. It reflects her spirit. It's close to what I was considering giving her. Naomi's eyes widened. You wanted to give Iris a name? A Korean name if she lacked one. It was going to be Yoonhee. One of its meanings is a blessed grace. Ha. Minho closed his eyes, but Una suits her perfectly. 2.5 years later, Kang Minho stood in a kindergarten auditorium wearing a charcoal sweater instead of a suit. He felt profoundly uncomfortable amongst the stream of mothers who cast curious glances his direction. I never realized the entrance ceremony for preschoolers was such an elaborate celebration, he whispered, leaning toward Naomi. Naomi smiled. It creates memories for the children and parents. Iris Una Ashford sat on stage with 20 other children wearing a tiny navy uniform and white sneakers. She waved at him from the stage. Minho waved back. The MC smiled into the microphone. Now it's time for the photography session. Parents will be called one after the other, so please listen carefully. Parents of Iris Ona Ashford, please come forward. The MC called after a while. Minho and Naomi stood immediately. At that moment, Minho paused while Naomi went ahead, his chest constricting. Parent. Iris looked straight at him. Expectation filled her eyes. Now! He smiled at her and walked to the stage, standing beside Naomi. Yes, parent. Una always called him Pa. And even when Naomi corrected her, the camera flashed at them. In that moment, he glanced at Naomi. She seemed to grow more beautiful and graceful as time passed. Her smile easily captivated any space she occupied, even though she remained oblivious to it. Deep down, he already understood what it was. So maybe it was time to acknowledge this deepening emotion and affection. Perhaps it was time to make it official, but he would need the assistance of his little angel. The end. If you enjoyed the story, drop a heart in the comments so we know you stayed with us till the end. Tell us, what name do you prefer for baby Iris? Would you like to see Minho and Naomi's relationship develop into something more? Like and subscribe for more life tale stories. Your support and presence means the world to us. We're grateful to have you here. See you in the next one.